Welcome back to Dynamic Character Productions. I am your host, Alex Trias, joined by another host, Ian Moorhead, and of course, our queen of the exit interviews, Lilly. Lilly, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm ready to crack into it.
And we are about to crack right into it. God, I missed that line. It's been too long. But with our first official vote out of All Stars, our Trinity Falls legend, Lydia. Lydia, welcome to the exit interview.
Hi, friends. It's good to be here.
Yeah, to just get into it, what were your thoughts when DCP announced All Stars? Were you like interested from the get-go? Beginning thoughts on this season and getting into it.
Yeah, 100%. When I saw that All Stars was going to be a thing, I was like all in. I really love this team of people in the game that Shell put on, and that's something that I really value in orgs is the production value. And so knowing that I was going to get a good experience and a really high quality one was a big reason. And I mean, like I said in my preseason confessional, I had some unfinished business, and that was to take it all. And clearly that didn't happen. But that my motivation was very strong going in of like, I gotta do what I came here to do the first time.
Yeah. And speaking of, Trinity Falls, just to touch on it a little bit, your gameplay in Trinity Falls was phenomenal. Advantage, Idol Queen. Were you worried about this going into the game if people, were more hesitant to work with you? Were you prepared for that going into All Stars?
I mean, I thought I was. I definitely knew that it was going to be a target on my back, but I mean, like I also said before, it's All Stars, so I felt like I should have been going in on what should have felt like a level playing field. Um, and I guess people were maybe more scared than I was. I was really ready to play with the big dogs. I wanted to play with threats. I wanted to play with, and I'll address this later too. Like, I wanted to play with Karen because she was a winner. I wanted to play with the big players. And I guess the players didn't want to play with me.
And we do see that in your
Too
final
scary.
poll. Yeah, I love that. I mean, if you are a big player, that really is the best way to make it far. So I think that, is worth something, especially in All Stars. But to get right back to the beginning, what were your thoughts when you first got marooned? Because you see some Trinity Falls people, you see Karen, a winner. Just what were your thoughts? And then with who kind of got shaken up into your tribe?
Um, let's see. I mean, I was really excited to see Austin. I was excited to see Sarah too. I kind of had a feeling she and I just kind of avoided each other because we're like friends, Lex too. So we kind of all just avoided talking to each other for a little while before the game. So it wasn't like a huge surprise to see them. They were both, well, Sarah was like a comfort and kind of like a, I don't know about this. And then Lex was just kind of a big, uh, you know, I mean, he's amazing and he's so entertaining, and I don't trust him.
So, so I actually want to touch that because I don't know how much it'll be like shown within the episodes, but something especially in the preseason from all of you from well, except Mike because Mike refuses to accept that he was on Trinity Falls. The other four of you all were coming into your preseason conversations with us in production about how you didn't want to just like cling back to Trinity Falls. Like you're very hesitant of like all the possibilities of who could be returning. A lot of you were like, I don't want any part of that. But then like it just almost seems as instinctively with you with Austin and we see with Lex and Sarah, you guys just naturally just will gravitate towards each other.
Well, I mean, I also did say that I wanted to work with Austin. I wanted a second chance at that. But with Sarah and Lex, yeah, I think because we are painted as friends because we are friends. It would have been wise to try to be a bit more distant from them. And also, and this is something that I really was trying to embody in this game and hoped that other people would as well. I was like, I go into games to make new connections, and I go into games to like learn how I work with other people. I don't want to play the same thing every time. And so it was I think maybe equal parts seeing the strengths in Sarah and Lex's games in particular, and like knowing what they're capable of and wanting to maybe distance myself from that, and then also this desire to work with new people.
Thank you.
Yeah, and speaking of new people, we see throughout the first 2 episodes, some people did their homework. I mean, speaking of Lex, he has like a whole wall of notes per person. And then we see people who are like Zucker, and they're like, oh, I haven't watched any mini. I've watched the recaps, though. So how do you think that kind of played into the game, and what was your level of studying? Because I think that we're going to see a trend of how people studied play throughout the game. So just wondering your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I didn't do quite as much like studying prep as I would have liked. Part of that is just like I'm in grad school and I only have so much time, right? And I mean, anybody does. But I watched a couple. I'd seen one of Sahara Dunes already. I watched Yasawa Islands, and then I watched the recaps of everything else just because I was crunched for time. So I didn't feel as prepared as maybe I would have liked to be. But also, once again, I try to come into games with a fresh perspective. But, other people really did do their homework. I think it creates, I mean, and fair enough, maybe biases about who would work together going in. But those also aren't necessarily true. And then, it can kind of make it sticky for people like me who wanted to make new connections, even though I was working with Austin. But then I wasn't working with Austin because he was gone. And so I was really, genuine about wanting to work with new people. So, but I mean, kudos to the people who did the homework, because I do think having that knowledge is really important. And I wish that I had done a bit more prep.
Yeah. And speaking of, homework, again, you were great at solving clues for idols and everything like that in Trinity Falls. We see one kind of come to light in the first episode of the hotline. And really all we see is that you and Austin are starting to work together, but he ends up getting it. Looking back, do you regret sharing that information with him, or just any thoughts about that advantage idol kind of thing that we've seen so far?
Oh, I have no regrets about how that went down. I thought it was a really good and pretty quiet, I think, I don't think people knew that we were talking that much in that moment, exchange of trust. And that really solidified to me, it's always hard to trust people in the games like fully. And so sharing that information really felt like I was like, okay, I do have something really solid here. I was busy and also trying to live my life on a weekend. I was on spring break, so I wanted to go out to brunch. And so we were talking, and part of it was just trying to get it quickly, because I didn't know how fast other people were going to start working on this. And so to have 2 eyes and ears on it instead of one, I felt was useful. So I had called the hotline, I heard the things, and I didn't have a pen and I didn't write it down. And then I was going to brunch. So me and Austin had a quick call. I let him know, and he was like, okay, well, I'll get to work. And get to work he did. And then, we had that exchange, and ultimately he did end up solving it. I was shocked when he told me. I was going to go into the conversation and be like, tell me what you want. Don't tell me anything. I totally get it. And he just kind of came right in and told me. And I was going to keep that. I know people have said it's, really dangerous for your ally to know you have a legacy advantage, but for the sake of, just really, really solidifying that bond, I was going to keep that locked. And so I guess we'll see what he does with that as the season goes forward. My hope is that he keeps his mouth fully shut. You know how I feel about that advantages.
Right. And so I think it is a kudo to both you two for one, you guys have a connection from your postseason, while you may not have worked with each other in your season, to be able to take that risk of, I need to put some trust into somebody because this is a complicated clue. There's a lot of nuance to it, and that have someone that you can trust with it, I don't necessarily see the legacy advantage where like everyone sees it in the game changers mindset of like, well, Sarah found out and then got your partner voted out. Whereas I feel the legacies almost can be beneficial for multiple people to know about, because I think that ingrains more trust than just an idol, because an idol can just be played. It can be played whenever,
right? The
used
legacy,
whenever.
yeah. And that's why I was going to say I don't regret like sharing the hotline stuff with him, because it wasn't like it was going to save me early on. It was going to, I would have had to wait quite a while to use it if I had found it. So, in terms of how it ultimately affected my game, it really didn't. And I'm really glad that Austin was the one to find it. I was really proud of him and excited. So, and to speak to also Alex, you mentioned, having the connection in the post game. Austin and I are good friends and have talked at length, particularly about Lost, which you'll see come up and has been a theme in all of our exit interviews thus far.
Nice. Like it. It's a good show. And of course, the first twist we see in the game when Austin and Austin Moorhead are voted out, we find out in the next episode they actually aren't. They are getting swapped on the different tribes. How does this alter your game? Do you think that Moorhead coming on to your tribe made it harder for you to battle the next tribal? Do you think it made it more difficult to lower your threat level, to try and get votes on your side? Just how did that affect your game moving forward?
Ultimately, in hindsight, it screwed me big time. I didn't realize. Karen, when he came on to our tribe, had said that he, they knew each other from Yasawa, and so that was kind of what was in my head initially. So I thought that in the moment, I thought that maybe we could have some pull with him. I was not aware of how tight he was with Simmons until after the fact. Wish I had known that. Would have been nice. And I could have done that. Could have achieved that by doing my homework, admittedly, a bit more. Yeah, but it I think was a pretty worst case in terms of like who could have come over and making this Exile 3 that I wasn't really visible to me, and I can get into that later too because I know there's questions about it. Yeah.
I say we like crack into it now, because my next question
okay
would be, what were your thoughts on, we see Austin and Simmons have this phenomenal reunion. There's 3 people from Exile that are, flying under the radar. So yeah, talk us through that, because there's a lot that happens that us as viewers don't get to see.
Yeah. Well, so one thing that really doesn't get shown is that Andrew and I really talked a lot. We bonded quite a bit. And like where he coaches rugby is near where I grew up. So we had like some real connections, and we talked for quite a while. He really made me feel like we were, and it feels maybe a little bit like a Lex situation again. He really made me feel like we were firmly together. And then 2 for 2. He doesn't vote with me, but we really did connect, and that was part of it, was where I asked, he was like, yeah, I did play with Simmons, and we didn't really work together. I'm still trying to get a feel for him, which is totally how I was talking about Austin, so I get it. But so my perception was from Karen, who I was also talking a lot to, saying that Austin, or Moorhead, she knew Moorhead, so maybe she could get him. And then Andrew telling me that he was still kind of feeling out Simmons. So it really wasn't on my radar. Wasn't on my radar.
And then before we go into like the questions, because I know there's a lot of them, one thing I had was, because like obviously your name was in everybody's mouth from the get-go. What do you think potentially saves you in that first vote, where it could have really, a lot of the conversation was it could be Lydia, it could be Garsow, but they ultimately all end up landing on Garsow over you? Like, do you think you were just a little more vocal, a little more visible? Like, what do you think happened where ultimately they decide to take the shot at him instead of you?
That's a great question. I don't really know. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I was a little bit suspicious of this like double elimination night 1 or whatever, because that just, I mean, if they actually went home, that would have felt cruel to me. And so, I mean, I don't know, maybe people had that similar thought of like, maybe this is going to be a swap. That was a thought that had crossed my mind. So maybe some people had that thought and was like, better to, you know, if they actually wanted me out of the game, save me for later. I have no idea. Honestly, not sure.
Okay.
Love to hear people's perspective on that who participated in that vote.
Before we get into the Facebook questions,
what's up?
I would like to know, why do you think in that first vote with Garsow going home, why do you think the votes kind of fell the way that they did? Because we kind of see like a group with Simmons, Maddie, Brittley, Danny, and then there's more people. I mean, like, that's not a majority on a 9-person tribe. So why do you think people fell into their lap instead of, maybe you and Austin's?
Yeah. So we had, I think, I forgot who said it in their confessional, but I think they named it nicely and not, they didn't include Austin in this, but myself and Andrew and Karen and Austin were all kind of, we had been talking quite a bit and felt like we were meshing together. And then there was that other 4. And then we had Mike. And so we saw in the first episode my exchange with Danny kind of weirdly negotiating. And I think I explained it in the second episode how he put Austin out there. I really didn't want to do that, but I didn't want to be like, absolutely not. And then so I pitched, I was like, well, you said someone from my season, how about I say someone from yours? And then he suggests Mike. And so right before the vote, we had 4 that could have potentially voted for Danny, myself, Austin, Karen, and Andrew. And then we're all kind of freaking out because Andrew had mentioned that the vote was going to go on Garsow. So I said, Danny told me, just moments ago that he said Mike's name. I didn't say Mike's name. He said Mike's name to me. So like, I think I should throw this out there as a last ditch effort. And the group agreed with me. So I texted Mike and I said that, and he was like, what? Are you serious? And obviously it's over text. You can't really gauge the tone. But I basically was like, yeah, he put your name out there. And, I've got, I have myself and 3 others. So if you vote for Danny, we can get him out. That was why I was like, I really hope we can squeak out this majority. And then both, obviously Mike didn't switch his vote, not that surprising. And then Andrew played with the majority. So.
And to clear that up, because that was a question I had rewatching all the footage, because I watched the clip of the 4 of you on call actively in real time saying, this is what we're saying to Mike. This is what we're saying to Mike. In my head, I'm like, why aren't you telling Mike, get onto this call right now? It's like right before trial, you force him in there with 4 other people, like, hey, this is what just happened. Danny said your name. So I reached out to Mike. Mike told me that at the same time that you were texting him, he was on an active call with Danny.
See, that's what
said right to Danny like this. And he said at the moment, Danny just made me so comfortable despite him saying my name that I wasn't going to flip at that point.
Fair enough. And Mike and I had a really good conversation. There was only a short snippet of it that got shown, but Mike and I had a great conversation after the fact. And I think, I felt a lot of empathy from both sides, just in terms of where we were at position wise in the game. But so I don't know, I appreciated that conversation with him. But that was really, I was trying really hard, and I thought that there was a chance I could have made that happen. But yeah, I figured he was on another call, honestly. I might even have sent him the thing, but it was minutes before tribal. So.
Okay.
My last question before we get to the Facebook questions, because I don't want to take up all of your time, is
no, I'm in it,
Is there anything watching back or thinking back, anything that you regret not doing to try not to get voted out? I know you're trying, you said eat crow, and we hear that you and Karen feel like there's just, you can't get a grip. But is there anything else you feel like might have worked that you didn't try?
I think working harder on Simmons and Moorhead and utilizing Andrew. Like, if I had known that, I think trying to get those 3 and then myself and Karen, to do, I don't know, maybe a Mike, flip it on the other Trinity person. Yeah, I was my pitch to a lot of people, which may be too many people, but I was really desperate and like had to take an anxiety pill that day because I was freaking out so much. So like, trying my best. But I was pitching to I because I thought that Karen and Moorhead could, I didn't, like I said, I didn't know about the Simmons and Moorhead situation. So I was like, well, what if I can get me, Karen, Andrew, Karen can pull in Moorhead and we just need one other person, y'all, and saying like you could pick if you want, to a lot of people, and it just didn't stick. So
and then I have one last fun question and then we'll go into like all the Facebook questions. So we had a lot of people on production who have played DCP, who obviously for many reasons would not be eligible to play. If any one of them you could have picked you could have seen on the beach would have been on your tribe, someone you wanted to work with, who would you have picked and why?
There's no pressure to say my name. I won't.
I have to say McKenna Feeney. I just think my face would light up when I saw her, and I think that we could do some real shit together.
Yeah, I picked McKenna too. That's an easy pre-merge boot. That's not you.
So I would have said Lilly, because like you both just had this affinity to find a way to talk about balls. Like you have to like put your balls out. This is all stars.
Oh, sorry.
So I just think you guys would have had fun times in Zoom on like Zoom calls together. I think it would have been a fun duo to have.
I enjoyed that. Not just my reaction to the balls comment initially was because all three of us were like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Where's he going with this?
Right. I was like, wait, and then I mean, yes, I did say that.
You did.
I stand by it.
And you should. But now I think it's time to go into these Facebook questions.
Let's do it.
So the first question
notes.
Isn't really a game question, but it sort of is. It's Luke, 2-part. Why is this the worst robbery of all time? And the follow-up is also, what escape room are we doing when I go to Seattle?
Luke, maybe it wouldn't have been a robbery if you got to play and we could have worked together. Maybe it would have not been a robbery. As for escape rooms, I'm gonna be honest and probably get some pearl clutches here. I've never actually been to one, but there is one like a 5-minute walk from me in my neighborhood. So if you want to come hang out in my cool little neighborhood, we can go to that one.
There you go. Next question is from Ashley. Lydia, I was so bummed I didn't get to play with you. If you had been the first one voted out instead of Austin 2.0 and ended up on the Fumo tribe, how would you have approached it?
I think I would have honestly played up my I would have been pretty bummed out anyway, but I think I would have played that up for some sympathy, hopefully. Get a sad. I also was trying to play up that I had recently, or not recently, I guess, but my previous org, I was also a first boot. And so I was trying to, be similarly to Mike, be like, I don't want to be Francesca here. So I think I would have probably played that up a bit, tried to connect quietly with Sarah and Lex, take most of what Lex says with a grain of salt, but at least just kind of get a feel for use them as people I know just to get my finger on the pulse. And then, Ashley specifically, we've already chit-chatted a bit and we definitely agreed that we felt just like a kinship. I think we would have gravitated toward working together. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think I would just, it really would depend. I'm such a vibe person. We talked about vibes so much in Trinity Falls, so I would really have to feel out the vibe. They obviously had that big 7-person majority or whatever. So I'd probably have to try and find my way into that, but just gotta suss out the vibes.
Gotta suss out those vibes. So it cannot be an exit interview with someone from Trinity Falls without the word vibes being mentioned at least 5 times.
I also didn't really realize until I put it on, but the shirt's kind of got some
it is very Trinity. Speaking of Trinity, our next question is from our boy Ben Horn. Bestie, no. Whose gameplay were you surprised the most by, and why?
I've got two answers for this. I already said I just really had a wonderful conversation with Mike, and that surprised me a little bit, not because I expected him to be like an asshole or anything, but just because I never had spoken to him, and his reputation in Monte Carlo was pretty snaky, and so I was surprised by that, and also surprised to watch back. I thought he maybe was in a more solid position than he actually was, watching him back. And then the other one who surprised me in more of a way that kind of stung a little bit was Andrew, just because, I mean, kind of like I said it on my way out, and in my little final words too. There were some complaints about being ghosted and left on red by people in the larger majority in that tribe. And then what I felt like happened at the end, minutes leading up to the tribal that I went home, was that I was being stalled actively out of making any other plans, because my fate felt like it was already sealed, even by my allies and people who I'd made personal connections with. So that was a bummer, but it's the game. I totally, I get it. Like I said, no hard feelings. You have to do what you have to do, but it did surprise me to see that. I mean, less so the second time, right? But the first time when he voted against Austin, that surprised me quite a bit too.
Okay. Well, you know what? The Trinity Fall questions are just going to keep on coming. From Sarah, leading up to the game, what did you do to prepare to play?
So we already kind of talked about how I didn't quite, do as much studying up as I wanted to. But one thing that I actually did, as it may also be apparent from my Trinity Falls gameplay, I'm not so great at physical challenges, and I'm not super confident in my endurance abilities. And so I didn't do it as consistently as I would have liked, but I did try every day to practice holding wall sits and planks. And I did make some significant improvements. Clearly didn't end up needing to use those skills, but it was a nice way to kind of motivate myself to be a bit more active.
Love that. I love that.
I'm a couch potato, so I was like, this is really good. I was like, I gotta win. I gotta wall sit.
Okay, we got two questions from Garsow here. We'll split them up because they're very different.
Yes.
So the first one is, after seeing how close Austin Moorhead was with some of the members of the Ignis tribe, do you think you would have fared better had someone else from Fumo been voted out?
100%. Yeah. I think that maybe one of my better options would have been if Corey had joined. I know that he and Karen actually did play together some more, and also he's just a loud voice in a way that's really entertaining, and also one that I feel like maybe would help be a bit of a shield. But I think that in terms of getting another number, I think Corey would have been potentially one that would have worked well for me.
Cool. And now we mentioned Lost earlier, and I will be honest, this will go right over my head because I have never seen an episode of Lost, but go off. Also, in honor of you recently finishing Lost, if you had to compare your game to any character from Lost, who would it be and why? We get confirmation that they really need to know this answer from Andrew and production member John David Millsip.
I love all the cosigns. We did actually talk about Lost too a bit in our first night of tribe bonding. So it's fun to keep bringing it back. I did some thinking about this. Also, spoilers for those of you who have not seen Lost and want to or something. Yeah, watch out. So I would say I would compare my game to Juliet. She is really smart and a bit sneaky at times. She's kind of an outcast, and people didn't always trust her, sometimes for a good reason, and sometimes she was really trying to be earnest and helpful. And ultimately, in the end, she met a pretty tragic and untimely demise. So, yeah, Juliet.
That sounds very apt. Very apt.
Watch the show. You'll see how it tracks.
We'll see if I ever have time. Okay, next question is from McKenna Feeney. So thankful you decided to play again. One of the biggest threats coming into the game without the title of Sole Survivor. My question to you, Queen Lydia, is which 3 members of the All-Stars cast do you want in your taxi? And when you get, I misread that. Yeah, what 3 members of the All-Stars cast do you want in your taxi when you get into the cash cab? And her follow-up to her own question is which member of production do you want to be in your random person on the street to help you out?
All right. I did some real thinking about this. So my 3 people would be Austin, because he's a smarty and he's a homie. Andrew, because another fun thing that we did in our first night of tribe bonding was some trivia, because Andrew loves trivia. So he just was like, what topics should I ask trivia questions about? And we did trivia. So I feel like he would be great for Cash Cab. And then to round out the like knowledge, maybe Zucker, because he's got the medical background. That's kind of my, if I'm really trying to do the trivia. And then the prod member, I picked Morgan because she is good with idols and stuff. So I figured, she'd be somebody savvy to pull off the street.
Well, I'm happy you didn't take the leading question from McKenna of what member of prod to pick. But good answers. Good answers.
Hard about it,
Yeah. Good answers across the board.
Got to give these hard questions some real thought.
Mm-hmm. Now one of our favorite production members, Carrie Underwood, has to ask, if you could describe your personality with an adult bevy, which one would you choose?
This was kind of tricky. I don't know. I think I just was overthinking the question, so I decided to go with a cocktail that I always love. I find it to be classic, a gin and tonic. Sometimes could be a little bit like, I feel like people might see it as like an old lady drink, and I definitely can be a little bit of an old lady sometimes. But you can also zhuzh it up with a whole bunch of stuff and make it like weird and funky and extra delicious. And I feel like that kind of eclectic, you can make it eclectic, which is how I identify. So I'll say gin and tonic.
All this just went over Ian's head.
Not a drinker. Fair enough. I'm trying to learn how to make mocktails. That's on my list, is like to get some good mocktails under my belt.
I sipped the Shirley Temple last week.
There you go. There you go. Our next question is from the beautiful snake himself, or grizzly bear, depends on the day. Lexington. Lydia, the idol queen who ruled Trinity Falls. When I saw DCP was hosting an All-Stars game, there was no doubt in my mind you were going to be on this season. Thankfully, we were not on the same tribe because, girl, I don't know what I would have done. You're truly a badass, hence why those weenies voted you out. Speaking of you being a badass, tell us the story behind one of your favorite tattoos.
Sure. And because I'm indecisive, I'm going to do 2 because I just can never keep it simple. So the first one is a little sillier. Let's see if I can't get a slightly better view. Yes, it's a Dragonair. Okay. It's kind of hard to see. The colors are like really bright, like rainbow kind of trippy colors. And so the story behind her, I named her Pearl, is that I followed this tattoo artist whose Instagram handle I think it's pronounced Blue Dove, but it's BLVE Dove. I followed her a long time ago before I moved out to Seattle, and she is located in Seattle. And so it was one night, it was like past my bedtime. I was in the bathroom and scrolling on Instagram like you do, and I saw that she had posted some flash. And one of them was of my favorite Pokemon. And so I had to I was like, it's past my bedtime. Like, let's be logical. Am I going to do this? I realized like she's in Seattle. So it just felt like a really serendipitous thing to have this artist that I had really liked her work for a long time and be able to get tattooed by her. And we had a really nice time. She's really sweet. So definitely looking to work with her again. And then my second one is that I'll tell a little story about is this little palm tree. So this is one half of a not matching tattoo, but a coordinated tattoo. So back in the day before COVID, I was in a band with my friend Kat. At first, just myself and my friend Kat, and then my friend Fro joined on a couple years later. The band was called Candy Isle, but the Isle was like island and not like in the store. And so before our friend Fro joined on the bass, I played guitar and Kat and I both did vocals, and Kat played a little cajon, did percussion. But so before Fro joined on, we decided to commemorate our band with tattoos. So Kat got the candy and I got the aisle. And I just think it's just like warms my little heart. And also I'll say, so Kat has since formed another band in Philly called Honey Thunder, one word. And if you like, well, I mean, I'm gonna recommend them anyway, but especially if you like garagey kind of indie rock. They have their debut album actually is coming out really soon, so look them up. Figured I'd send a shout out if I'm gonna mention this little piece of Kat's music history.
See that I love I don't have tattoos, but I always love hearing the story behind the tattoo because they are always just so beautiful and interesting. So
well, thanks.
We learned something new.
Some of them are silly, but you know.
Yeah. And that's the point.
I like silly tattoos.
Our next question is from Nick Cannon. I'm so sad to see you out this early, bringing back the DCP tradition of the Seattle curse. But what is your all-time favorite Survivor moment and your favorite Survivor challenge? And if you don't want to do anything specifically to Survivor the show, you could always pick something from DCP. That's me adding it in.
Oh, thanks. I probably have more other moments as well, but the thing that really sticks out and comes to my mind for my favorite Survivor moment is Jeff, do you know what a Reuben sandwich is? It just tickles me. I love Christian Hubicki. And the whole course of that challenge and him winning it really just delights me because it's one for the nerds, right? But him just realizing that he had Jeff as a captive audience and could just talk at him for as long as he wanted. Oh, it delights me. And then as for a challenge, I wrote this, I was taking notes as I do yesterday and forgot to finish thinking about this. So maybe I will think of a DCP challenge. I like the classic. I really liked the pole, the fishing pole, not fishing pole, but the key challenge that we did. I was really curious how I've always been curious how I would do specifically at a challenge like that. So it was fun to actually try it out. Didn't do so hot. My excuse that didn't get aired was that the strings were cut too short. I thought I do embroidery. I thought I'd be good at tying the knots, but the strings were so short. It was really difficult. So kudos to the people who did it.
Yeah, blame your fave for that.
I know it's fine. It was a challenge, so why not make it challenging?
Of course. Yeah, I love the prisoner escape challenge. A classic. Next question is from the sole winner of Yasawa Islands, Karen Kuhlman. And she just needs some confirmation. How loyal would you have been to her if things had gone your way?
Sweet Karen, I really was down to work with you and make a deep run. Like I said before, wanted to work with big threats, and what bigger threat than a winner? And I thought, if I'm going to be able to kind of situate myself with anybody who would be sort of a shield, because I have this reputation that's starting to kind of make me cringe of the Idol Queen, because I can't get away from it. But anyway, so why not go for somebody who's won the game in terms of maybe a shield a little bit, because nothing but respect, right? As for how far maybe I would have taken that, I did have some concern because you are good at a wall sit. I do know that. I'm so sorry if you hear my cats fighting, because they just started fighting with each other. So I did express probably to some people in the game that I did want to work with Karen for a long time. There was a chance that I would have tried to maybe cut you at 6 or 7, because I didn't want to get to a wall sit if I didn't think that she would bring me. But I also think that I've been in situations before where my best chance at winning was simply getting to the end, and it didn't feel like it mattered so much who I went with. And so if I were in that position, and if I trusted that Karen would feel similarly and want to bring me to the end, I absolutely, like I said, it's all stars, and I'm not afraid to sit next to a big dog at the end, because I think I can defend my game. And so I think one of two ways. Either I would have tried to get you out before a wall sit, or I would have loved to sit at the end and battle it out with you.
Well, we'll have to see if there's a wall sit towards the end of the season to
confirm
any of your fears.
Right, we'll see.
Our next question is from Greg, and It's a simple. Can you please do your best Velma impression? Like, give us a Jinkies at bare minimum.
Oh my god. Okay, so I'm gonna also this might also ruffle some feathers. I have seen like I have a very casual engagement with Scooby-Doo. Don't know a ton of Scooby-Doo, but I love the Velma reference. So yeah, I'll give you a Jinkies and my glasses. I can't see without my glasses.
Great.
Greg, you're welcome. Our next question is from John David Millsip. Lydia, you're an absolutely incredible and dangerous player. Were you given more time in this game, there is no doubt you would have flourished. In your post-tribal tell-all session, you specifically mentioned Maddie and Danny as a duo to watch out for. Why mention them over the 3 Exile Island boys on the tribe?
Yes, I really appreciate this question, just because I felt like it was worth clearing up since it was commented on. So I already kind of touched on my foggy awareness of the Exile 3 as a thing because of how I'd been communicated with, particularly by Karen and Andrew. So they weren't so much on my radar is one thing. Another, I think, really important thing to keep in mind is the fact that, God, I'm so sorry, my cats are... Another thing to keep in mind, my cats are fighting. They're mad about it too. Is that I had just been unanimously voted out of an All-Stars game that I was like really emotionally invested in. So I was kind of shitting myself and trying not to cry. So just, I wouldn't expect anybody to be able to be super clear in what they want to say in that moment. So that's another thing. And thirdly, and I was thinking about this and like, big ups to Andrew if he did this with the intention of kind of putting this in my head. But he had told me in a one-on-one video call that people had been painting he and I as a duo, myself and Andrew. And that really got me steamed because I was just like, I got so much like flack for being in a duo in my last season. So like, why would I really try to posit myself in that situation? Andrew and I also had not talked on like video for a good, like we hadn't had an individual conversation on Zoom in a good while. So I was just kind of steamed about that. And so I was thinking about duos. And lastly, another thing that wasn't shown was that both with Danny and Maddie mentioned it, that we had some conversations and I thought some good ones where, yes, I did eat crow, but I also really, was like, listen, I know I'm on the bottom, so use me as a number. Let me prove myself to you this round and maybe we can work together. And so I kept all my promises to them. I said I wouldn't talk about our conversations. I wasn't going to vote for them. All of these things, I specifically never brought their names up. And so, I was like, I did my part. Obviously, like, I don't blame them for voting me out, but I also was like, you know what? I did my part for them. So, and they didn't give it back. So I was also kind of like maybe a little petty, but it was like, I'll give them a little like nod on my way out as well, because I really did. I put a lot of work into making sure that I did what I told them I was going to do.
Well, you know what they say, turnaround's fair play. So, had to put that out there. I love it. The last question is from me. So I plan to put this in for everyone that exits because I think it's very important to always finish a very stressful journey with some positivity.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to think about one positive thing you could take away from your All-Star experience.
Mr. Positivity himself. Thank you. I love the question. One like really just joyous moment that I will keep from this season was finding out that Karen and I have both have a cat named Claudia. We spell them differently. She has the pun on claw and mine doesn't. But they're both brown tabby cats. And mine is bigger and a couple years older, so I've been calling Karen's Claudia's Chilean little sister, and that just really made me so happy. I thought it was so sweet and so like what a serendipitous thing. And then, I mean, all games, I really value the connections that I make and take away from them. And so, even people from the Fumo tribe, I've had a chance to connect with and am like hoping to keep that up with moving forward and outside of the game. So I'm really grateful for that. I mean, DCP has brought me like some real dear friends. And it's really great to kind of keep that up and keep making those connections.
Well, that's incredible to hear. I love that. It's a big part of why we do DCP. As much as we love the gameplay and our love for Survivor and getting to be on the production side of seeing it play out, it's the connections that the players make within themselves and with us as prod outside of it. So I'm really glad you are able to take that away. Before I hand it back over to Lily and Ian for any final questions that, for us to close it out, for all exits that I'm in, I want to sort of like give very, very brief spiel because I know I'm someone meant for tangents.
Same, buddy. It's all good.
But Lydia, we were, especially from my end, as you know, Trinity will always hold a very special place in my heart because it was my first experience being the host for it. I'm someone who always believes placement isn't something that you should take as a negative to weigh you down, because I think, especially for a first boon in All-Star seasons, there's always a reason why someone gets targeted early. And you look at All-Stars in Survivor, like you have the Rob Sesterninos, you have the winners, like there's reasons why you're being looked at, and it's the way I will always take it is it's the biggest compliment in the world. In that sense, because they're taking you out because they just feel if we let her even get a breath in this game, she's going to take it. You give an inch, Lydia's going to take a mile. And I would have loved to see you get all the way to the end. But ultimately, I was just so happy to have you in the game. And thank you for trusting us to give you a second opportunity.
Thank you. Y'all are amazing. I had no doubts it was going to be a just really good season. And I felt so cared for too. Really, y'all are great.
Okay, back to you.
That's hard to follow up. That was a beautiful, like,
I can follow it up.
All right, Ian. Yeah, you follow.
Let's do it.
All right. So this question is not meaning to be, mean or anything to someone else. Replace someone on the cast that was on your original season with someone else that was on your original season. So this could be strategy based, or they would still be on whatever tribe they were on to begin with. So
okay,
you would replace it. For example, you would replace Garsow with Selkirk. I don't know.
Okay. Oh, that would have been so cute. Wow, that's a tough question.
Yeah, I never put mine on Facebook. I need immediate first.
I love it.
I gotta think about this though. I can't. I'm not off the top of my head. I mean, I'm thinking probably big threats, but I didn't want Emily because I had said I would have been terrified of her. I know she wouldn't have done it because she told me, but like kind of V, just because I could have used her as a shield. That's part of where my thought's at. But other like finalists probably John might be one too. And who would I replace? And probably not Mike because we were on the same tribe. Sorry to the entertainment value, but probably Lex. I would have been less stressed out.
Definitely should have. Yeah, that's a.
I was expecting you just immediately say, "Oh, it's Lex, love him." But...
I mean, well, Sarah said it well too. He might take care of himself. Like we'll see. It's like I didn't really wasn't fully trusting in working with him, but I also it's like sometimes he just lovingly talks himself into the vote.
All right. Well, my second question might be even more difficult.
Oh God.
Not including anything from All Stars. So pretend like this never happened. Who is on your DCP Mount Rushmore? You need 4 people. This can only be. I mean, it doesn't have to be just seasons that you've seen. I guess.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, that's you've seen some seasons in full.
Right.
So you don't need no list is a perfect list. So who would
oh God.
You can pick yourself too.
I know. I'm like, am I gonna? That's difficult. I feel like the first winner's got to be on there, so I'm gonna say Karen as one of them. Wait, okay. How far did Morgan get?
She finished
Fourth.
fourth, so same as
Okay, so same. I'm gonna say Morgan then, and she can represent the advantage queens of the game. And because if my face is on the Survivor Mount Rushmore, I'm gonna keep being a big old threat, and I don't need that actually. And you know what? Okay, I'm gonna keep going. It's time for the women of DCP to win some things. So we'll keep going. Let's say Emily, because she was the fan favorite. Actually, that's a good one because she won fan favorite and because she is like a beast. And then V, because she's my ride or die, just because she deserves it.
Yeah, you know what? Carrie would have loved those answers because, as Carrie will always mention, it's about time.
It's about time a woman won this game. So, I mean, we'll see if that energy keeps up for All Stars.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you.
And for our last question, a classic DCP tradition. If you could sum up your game in one word, what would it be and why?
Oh, I've thought about this because I thought hard about the first one too. And that word is unfortunate. And I don't know if I need to explain.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that wraps up everything from our first exit interview of DCP's Rites of Passage All-Stars. Thank you all for following along with this, and make sure you keep following along by pressing subscribe, hit that like button, hit that bell for all notifications so you know when all of our content drops. Join our Facebook page. Join our Instagram where you'll see secret scenes, maybe bloopers. Who knows? It's up to our media team to decide. But as for our schedule, as always, we'll have episodes coming out every Monday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, followed by exits on Wednesdays and Saturdays. And on Sunday, we'll have John doing a little replacement of the recap. I personally still don't quite know what's going to happen. So tune in on Sunday night for all the hijinks that John could lead us in. But with that, thank you all. We'll see you next time. We love you.